Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Signal TV channels 8 and 250. And you can also watch us via facebook.com/OneNewsPH. Also on YouTube by typing in One News PH. You can also download the Signal Play app, and we would like to thank PLDT for their continued support in giving us one of the fastest, well, the only fast fiber optic internet connection here in Lipa City. Okay, let's get your day started. It's September 20, 2021. It's a Monday. And for today, let's get started with the Daily Starter, a word from the great Mahatma Gandhi. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Let's keep it there. Let's keep it there, Arvik. Many of us, ladies and gentlemen, are trying to find our new selves in the new order or in the new normal of COVID pandemic. And in the face of overwhelming changes, many of us have been struggling to find our new identities, new roles, and new meaning. Gandhi's words ring so true for many people who are retired or who were retired, forgotten, ignored by society in general, and by answering the call to serve, by stepping up to fight COVID, and came and care for others, they have become their new selves. Many retired generals, scientists who were unknown, technicians who were never noticed, businessmen who were generally distant or remote from the masses have become today's new leaders. Some even heroes simply by serving others. You don't need to have to make grand gestures or make big expense required, just continuous service like helping people get vaccinated, checking on people who may need encouragement, and as our senior pastor, founder, president of Every Nation Ministry, Pastor Steve Merle once shared, he never had a midlife crisis because he was always so busy. It could not fit into his schedule. Do that, get busy serving others. And that's our daily starter for September 20, 2021. Hope you will keep it in mind for the rest of the day. In the meantime, let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. And the main headline, okay, now entering the ring as presidential contender, Senator Manny Pacman Pacquiao. Pacquiao running for president in 2022. He has announced his candidacy, officially announced his candidacy, although everyone knew he was running for president. And he said, I quote, "I am a fighter and I will always be a fighter." Back to the front page of the Philippine Star. Up on the top part, on the header of the Philippine Star front page, 171 Metro Manila areas under granular lockdown. Okay, there's 171 barangay, streets, sitios, homes that have been put under granular lockdown because of confirmed COVID cases. Kumbaga, hindi na hinuhospital, bahay-bahay na laang. On the right side of the upper front page, Duterte to join the United Nations General Assembly. President Duterte will join the high-level general debate of the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly to be held this week, and the president is expected to push for universal access to COVID-19 vaccines and the welfare of migrant workers. Okay. And on the left side of the upper front page, you have that photo of billiards cue artist Carlo Biado, who celebrates after completing a title run in the U.S. Open Pool Championship in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Buti pa doon sa New Jersey, they already have billiards competitions. Okay. Meantime, back here on the front page, you can see there in the middle part of the Philippine Star, front page, the tally of Philippine COVID cases. We are reporting a lower number than the past 3 days last week. It's now 19,271. Okay, so it's a lower number. The number of deaths are still at 205. Mataas pa rin, marami pa rin pong namamatay dahil sa COVID. And the total number, kabuuang namatay sa COVID-19, 36,788. Okay, konti na lang, ay naku, magte-37,000 na yan. That might happen this week at the rate these deaths are happening. Okay, now, just a warning para sa inyong mga nasa Southern Luzon and the Bicol region, there is an LPA or low pressure area that is forecasted to bring a lot of rains today, maybe even tomorrow. Sana po ay hindi na masyadong humaba. Okay, and the photo in the center spread, Lieutenant Colonel John Giagi, Manila Police District Station 3 Commander, uses a drone to monitor devotees leaving and entering Quiapo Church yesterday. Nako po, nag-high-tech pa, magbibilang lang ng 30 tao doon sa plaza. Ano ba ito? Sa may Quiapo, gumamit pa ng drone. Anyway, to each his own. Okay, presidential advisor on entrepreneurship, Concepcion, eyes shorter quarantine for fully vaxxed North America traveler. Ayan po, no, that is probably going to be this week's this week's main topic for discussion. It is about air travel. Kasi yung mga airlines po natin naghihingalo na. In fact, Philippine Airlines declared bankruptcy in I think in the US or somewhere abroad because hindi nila maharap. They could not meet the obligations that were going to come up, due dates, because yung kanilang mga biyahe sobra nang na-restrict. So, Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion is pushing for shorter quarantine periods for fully vaccinated travelers from North America to encourage them to celebrate Christmas with their family and relatives in the Philippines. Totoo naman po, no? Kasi katulad yung mga anak natin who are studying abroad, they only have maybe 2-3 weeks Christmas holidays. And then you will require them when they come to the Philippines, if we will even allow them to come to the Philippines. Di ba, sabi ng tiga-DFA, kung hindi ka OFW, medyo halos imposible nang makakabalik ka. And then when they arrive here, you will put them in quarantine for 2 weeks. Ano na nangyari sa bakasyon nila? By the time they get out of quarantine, Christmas is over. Okay, unless they time it perfectly so that they can have Noche Buena and New Year, and then they have to fly out and then be quarantined again from their origin, because we are, for all intents and purposes, a high risk country for COVID. Anyway, ako po ay nagpupolitika na, nag-editorial na. No, I do not mean to editorialize. Okay, Robredo prepared to be unity candidate. Okay, Vice President Leni Robredo has once again said she is ready, willing, and able to be the unity candidate if the opposition chooses her as the unity candidate. Ang problema, the opposition is united in one thing. They all want to be candidate. Ayan po, please read my column in the Philippine Star today, Slip, Slide, and Isolation Place, para makita ninyo, malaman ninyo, you can learn about what several presidential candidates and their minions have been up to lately. Okay. And in case you're wondering what is that photo on the bottom left of the Philippine Star, it is an old photo of police officers looking at Nanette Castillo as she grieves beside the body of her son Aldrin, an alleged drug user killed by unidentified assailants in Manila, October 3, 2017. Yan po ay lumabas o na-print ulit in relation to the calls for the President and the Philippine government to cooperate with the International Criminal Court's probe, okay, on the drug war. And last but not the least, ito po, good news. The only good news, aside from Carlo Biado winning the pool championship, at least nagkabilaan ng Philippine Star across the front page, Jollibee extends 10% discount for vaccinated diners. Jollibee Food Corporation, a listed Asian food conglomerate, is extending its 10% discount offer for dine-in transactions of vaccinated individuals, okay? Until November 30 this year. Ayan po, no? Participating stores include Jollibee, Chowking, Mang Inasal, Greenwich, Burger King, Panda Express, and Piho 24 Red Ribbon. Offers the same discount. Okay, yan po, no? So, ayaw nyo no, nabakunahan na kayo, may discount pa kayo. Naku naman, hindi na pinag-iisipan niya. Now, let's now go to our first interview of the day. But first, the intro to the topic. The Department of Budget and Management slashed the Department of Health's budget by more than 73% daw. DOH proposed almost 74 billion pesos that would include special risk allowance of healthcare workers for 2022. But DBM approved only 19.68 million pesos. Ayan na our first guest for today is someone who has been pushing for primary level health care, o yung mga kumbaga sa barangay pa lang nagagamutan na, caring for the health workers, etc. Let's bring in a regular on agenda, Congresswoman Stella Kimbo, 2nd District of Marikina. Congresswoman, good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning, Sito.
Okay, I guess the first question should be your reaction to the budget slashes imposed on the DOH. Ako personally, I was bothered. I was really bothered when 40+% of the RITM proposed budget was reduced or removed. Medyo sabi ko, in the middle of a war for our lives, we are taking away guns and ammunition from our frontliners.
Well, it is obviously very unfortunate that that happened. Malaking portion nung disapproved 50 plus billion ang narinig ko during the budget hearing is for allowances for our frontliners. And alam naman natin, Sito, na yan ang isa sa pinakamalaking issue sa ngayon. Many of the frontliners have not received their special risk allowance. At yun ang naging dahilan kung bakit nagkakaroon ng problema, di ba? Nagte-threaten sila na umalis sa frontline. So yun po. But ang paliwanag ng DBM is that when the budget proposals were submitted to them, hindi naman daw nila inakala na magkakaroon ng surge in cases. And so that's the reason for why nagkaroon ng ganong kalaking slash. That's according to the DBM.
Okay, now how are we supposed to correct this? It's Monday, ayoko magmura, ayoko mag-name call. So how are we supposed to correct this?
Well, that's the reason for why meron tayong budget hearings in Congress. So right now, it's a bill. And of course, after hearing the bill, after plenary debates, meron naman tinatawag na period of amendment na kung saan pwedeng mag-amend, magpalit ng amounts dyan sa proposed budget. So yun ang purpose ng ating current budget hearings.
Okay, now
And meron din
sorry.
BICAM, di ba? As you know,
Yeah.
meron din tayong tinatawag na BICAM. So even if we approve a certain version na merong amendments ang Congress, gagawin din yun ng Senado. And malamang sa malamang, magkaiba yung versions na yun. So magkikita ulit ang Congress at Senate sa isang bicameral conference na kung saan i-iron out ang differences.
Okay, Congresswoman, I following what you said earlier, yung excuse or yung dahilan ng mga tiga DOH budget group na they did not expect a surge, one would tend to think that, are you kidding? I mean, do you even know what you're doing as part of the DOH? Kasi parang iintayin mo pa yung surge to justify a surge in budget. I mean, the rest of the world is already dealing with this in an advanced stage. Tayo dito parang nagtipid pa tayo. Senate President Tito Soto has accused many of them of incompetence. What has this led you to believe? Are these people competent to be making plans, strategies, and proposing budgets for the DOH?
Ang hirap sagutin naman ang tanong mo, Sito. Pero siguro...
Kasi ma'am, buhay na nakataya dito. Ekonomiya natin, buhay natin, lahat tayo nagbababag na kung ano yung tamang gawin. Tapos ang isasagot sa iyo, kasi hindi naman namin akalain magkaka-surge. I mean, hello, meron pang kailangang mamatay bago tayo tumawag ng doktor.
Siguro, ang analysis ko dyan, if any, ayoko naman isipin na walang competence, di ba? Palagay ko it's a lack of coordination. Kasi di ba, parang hindi mo naman siguro maiaalis sa DOH na nakikita nila yung problema ng health. Pero ang problema naman, yung DBM, hindi pareho ang appreciation nila dito sa health problem. So, ang pagtingin siguro ng DBM, sige, hindi kayo nag-utilize ng inyong budget last year, so let's do the mechanical thing, isa-slash ko budget mo. Not realizing na hindi naman ganun yun, di ba, pagdating sa COVID. Kasi kailangan malaki ang buffer mo because maraming uncertainties. And as early as January, February of this year, alam na natin na, kasi kung naalala mo, Sito, nagkaroon tayo ng surge nung March.
Yes.
Diba? So the fact na nagkaroon ka ng surge nung March na hindi natin inasahan nung January because nagluwag na nga tayo ng ating mga patakaran, di ba? Ibig sabihin, there's still a chance na magkaroon ulit ng another surge towards the end of the year. And not only that, pagkausapin mo naman yung ating mga economic managers, tila nagtitipid din sila sa kanilang pera. Ang dahilan is because hindi natin alam ang katapusan ng pandemic. So, within the executive, iba-iba ang appreciation nila sa situation. Diba? And parang hindi sila nag-uusap-usap. Parang for me, yun ang nakikita kong limitation.
Well, that's very fair of you, Congresswoman. But is it really iba-iba, different appreciation, or kanya-kanya to each his own, kanya-kanyang agenda, so to speak.
Well, yun na nga po. That's what we mean by nagkukulang yata sa coordination and communication. And in fact, yun dapat ang trabaho ng IATF, 'di ba? Kaya nga interagency yan. Pero hindi natin nakikita no kung hindi siya ganoon ka transparent sa atin lahat, 'di ba? Yung level of coordination na nangyayari sa IATF. In fact, that's the reason for why I, with Rep. Sharon Garin, filed a resolution, no, urging the IATF to look at all of these policies that have to do with not only keeping us safe but also reopening the economy. Kasi ang pagtingin namin nangyayari sa iba't ibang parte ng gobyerno na tila kulang sa communication and coordination.
In fact, yeah, is that resolution 2209 to impose granular lockdowns and bakuna business bubbles?
Yes, kasi as you know, Sito, yung bubbles nanggagaling naman sa MMDA. It's an issuance of the mayors, di ba?
Yeah.
So parang that's very important, pero they come from different bodies when in fact they are interrelated. The reason for why you want to do granular lockdown now, and if you do it effectively, meaning kasama dyan ang primary care, kasama dyan ang ayuda, kasama dyan ang properly compensating our frontliners, then you can open up the economy, and you do that by way of bubbles, di ba? So magkakasama lahat yan, pero parang the way it's being implemented, it's as if magkahiwalay sila. So yun ang hope namin, no, na isama-sama lahat so that we can have better coordination, and at the same time, makasama din ng Kongreso dito sa conversation kasi we are the representatives of the people, and umiikot kami sa aming mga distrito. Nakikita talaga namin kung ano nangyayari sa baba, na baka naman walang ganong opportunity ang ating members ng IATF.
But it seems, Congresswoman, that lucky for you that you come from Marikina and you represent Marikina, which seems to have the higher level or better quality of protocols, services, and facilities to deal with COVID. Pero yung ibang mga bayan, they're not as fortunate to have it as good as Marikina. Now, what are you seeing down on the ground, and why is it na kayo nakikita ninyo pero itong mga national parang hindi nila makuha? Because you mentioned something about compensation or allowances for medical health workers. Wala raw sa budget proposal for 2022. Halos mag-strike na nga sila ng all out di gano'n na naman bago magpasko.
Yun po. For me, yan ang isa sa pinakamalaking problema sa budget proposal ng DOH ngayon. Bukod pa yan dun sa 45 billion na unprogrammed appropriation for booster shots. For me, that's a second big problem. Pero dito sa frontliners, no, wala. There's nothing in the budget that pertains to the payment of special risk allowances, the payment of meals and transportation allowance, the payment of active duty pay, pati life insurance. And these are all benefits that Bayanihan 2 particularly gave the frontliners. At ano naman maliwanag naman sa Bayanihan 2 kung ano yung intention. Kasi alam naman natin kung gaano kahirap yung problema ng frontliners sa ngayon. And at the same time, sila yung inaasahan talaga natin, di ba? If they don't show up at the front line, patay tayo, and patay din ang ekonomiya. So it's very important to take care of them, to protect them and properly compensate them. Pero sa ngayon, none of those are in the GAA 2022. So yan ang sinusubukan natin i-correct by way of amendments. Pero ang problema kasi sito, when you say we propose to increase the budget of the DOH by a certain amount, maghahanap ka ng babawasan naman within the budget. Ganyan ang patakaran kasi sa budget. You can change the elements within the budget proposal, but you cannot change the total. So yung 5.02 trillion pesos na total, you cannot change. In other words, kung magdadagdag ka ng budget sa isang ahensya, magbabawas ka din somewhere else. So yun ang challenge ngayon. So kung magdadagdag ka sa DOH, saan ka magbabawas? Diba? So maghahanap ka ngayon ng taba-taba everywhere else.
Okay, so dahan-dahan naman po, busina. Huwag kayong sasabihin tataba-taba, tinatamaan ko. Anyway, I'm just trying to lighten it up, Congresswoman, kasi iinit talaga ulo ko. Because very few of us Filipinos realize that you, the members of Congress, crafted such a good and thorough law in the, ano ba tawag nun na batas na yun?
Bayanihan.
Bayanihan Bill or law that covers all of these benefits and privileges for healthcare workers para wala na silang hihingin o hahanapin or kakailanganin pa. And yet, in spite of this, the government or the administration or DOH leadership did not take advantage of the bayanihan. Is that correct?
They did not fully take advantage of it kasi hindi nila completely nagamit yung pera. Ang problema sa Bayanihan 2, kung ma-time is up ka, which is June 30, isusoli mo yung pera sa treasury. So, ang laki ng sinoli nila. That's why we were really frustrated. And then now na wala ng Bayanihan 2, tapos hanging in the balance yung Bayanihan 3. Kasi nga nagtitipid yung economic managers. Ayaw nila ng Bayanihan 3. Ang problema, yung mga provisions na ganyan na magaganda sa Bayanihan 2, wala na yun ngayon, Sito. 'Di ba? So yun yung lagi namin sinasabi. When you say you reject Bayanihan 3, you have to remember na that means rejecting all of these nicely crafted provisions, including taking care of our frontliners.
Okay, forgive me for being maliciously suspicious, but you have to wonder. You're giving them a plate full to use, they don't use, then the frontliners, healthcare workers go nuts, go on the streets and do noise rallies, and then they scrounge around for money. Is there a possibility na sinasadya ito for someone's gain? Kasi as you explained it, if you did not spend it or you did not provide for it, you have to get it elsewhere. Is there a benefit to someone or somebody in this kind of a crisis situation or parang, maniobra, so to speak?
Well, una sa lahat, wag naman sana, di ba? Kasi buhay ang nakasalalay dyan. Number two, also, it doesn't make sense because any administration would obviously want continuity in whatever form, 'di ba? Alam
Yeah.
natin 6 years lamang ang bawat administration, pero all administrations would want continuity and sinubukan nga po kung naalala natin si Pinoy, 'di ba? Yan din ang kanyang sinubukan. So parang if you want to aspire for continuity, obviously it won't make sense for you not to try to do your best today. So,
Yeah.
ako tingin ko, baka ganun na lang yung simpleng pagtingin sa situation. So, sa tingin ko, parang, baka yun lang At the end of the day, baka nagkukulang talaga sila sa coordination. So, yan ang sinusubukan natin gawin. We try to provide that venue for
That's
more
why I
proper
like you.
coordination and transparency.
That's why I like you. You are so professorially polite. Yun, so kind. Kasi alam mo, sa amin mga nandito sa bukid, dalawa lang yan eh. Kung hindi sila tanga, gago sila. Kasi, this problem with the budget or the risk allowances, the benefits, has been a problem since a year and a half ago, even before that. And yet one would think that after all of this, this is yung huling noise barrage and strike was not the first one. There was one before that, and one would think na, teka, wag na maulit yan pwede ba isama nyo na sa budget yung kanilang benefits. And it turns out that you, Congresswoman, and your colleagues in Congress actually put it in the law. So, kung hindi nila nagawa, sorry na lang po, magalit na yung magalit, pero buhay, as you pointed out, buhay natin, ang nakataya. Anyway, moving forward, so, you passed this, or you filed this resolution, bakuna and business bubbles. What do you hope to attain with this resolution, or what would be the perfect scenario as far as you're concerned?
Well, itong bakuna bubble, as I mentioned earlier, was a proposal nga. It's an issuance of the MMDA. So, ibig sabihin nun, kapag bakunado ka daw, mas meron kang laya na gumalaw. You have greater mobility as a consumer and also as a worker if you are fully vaccinated. So, ibig sabihin, kung gusto mo magpagupit, pwede ka magpagupit kasi bakunado ka. So, when you go to the barber shop, if you show some proof that you're vaccinated, dapat pwede ka. At sa akin naman, parang kulang yon. That's just one half of the equation. Kasi kailangan mo rin tignan, of course, ito, alam naman natin na just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean completely immune ka. Di ba?
Yes.
Kasi merong efficacy rate. Yung Sinovac nga daw, 56%. So we still know of a number of cases na kahit fully vaccinated, nagkakaroon pa rin ng COVID. So ang iniisip ko dyan, dapat may kasama ding on the employer side, meaning on the business side. So dapat may tinatawag na business bubble, parang yung travel bubble na nag-succeed naman, na ibig sabihin, if you're a business and you can have a safe workspace, ibig sabihin, your employees are fully vaccinated, you are willing to routinely test your employees, and at the same time, your social distancing protocols are in place, pwede kang makonsider na safe workspace, pwedeng payagan ang business. So, ang hirap kasi kung iniisip mo lang yung one part of the equation, meaning as a consumer, papayagan mong lumabas ng bahay para bumili or magpagupit. Kailangan isipin mo rin on the employer side. Kasi yung employer, araw-araw pumapasok yung empleyado mo eh, di ba? So kailangan mong ma-assure ang public na kapag pumunta ka sa, halimbawa sa salon namin, right, or sa aming dental clinic, we will assure you that we take care of our employees. So tingin ko, it has to be two kinds of bubbles eh. Hindi lang yung bakuna bubble from the side of the consumer, but also on the side of the business. Kasi yung businessmen, yung employers natin sito, sa totoo lang, sila yung pinakamagaling mag-enforce ng minimum health standards. Palagay ko, mas magaling pa sila sa mga bara-barangay. Kasi sila yung may kakayahan, meron talaga silang incentive eh. Di ba? Kasi if they don't protect their employees, patay yung bottom line nila eh, di ba? Hindi sila kikita. So, kailangan ganun ang pagtingin sa employer na partner natin sila sa pagpapatupad ng minimum health standards. So, yun yung dalawang konsepto na dapat ipagsama.
Well, I just looked at the código that they sent me regarding your resolution, and it says here business bubbles must be allowed in order to let businesses, whether deemed essential or non-essential, to operate so long as they deploy fully vaccinated employees and they subject such employees to regular COVID-19 testing. Congresswoman, the direction now globally, at least for the developed, more progressive countries, is that if you are not vaccinated, stay home. Don't even think of going to work or going to school because we will require you to show a test every week, an RT-PCR test. In other countries, it is not subject to compromise. Walang bakuna, walang trabaho. I think the Philippines has the tendency to follow global trends. How soon before that happens in the Philippines? Kasi parang people and government always use that as an excuse eh. Wala pang bakuna eh. Kulang kasi kami sa bakuna. Parang ang nangyayari, it has now become the shortcoming has become the excuse and the reason why we can't move forward. Sorry, pinagsabay-sabay ko yung mga points. No? What's your reaction to this?
Well, that's the reason for why, again, we filed the resolution. No? You cannot look at the bubbles independently of the granular lockdown, which is now our new approach to the health problem. Kasi yung bakuna bubbles and business bubbles, that's the strategy for opening up the economy, di ba?
Correct.
But you cannot open up the economy if your health response is medyo hindi ka sure, di ba? Kasi yan ang problema eh. Walang willingness on the side to open up talaga kung alam mo, naku, teka, baka magkasakit. Diba? So yung granular lockdown, we have to show proof that it really works. Sa ngayon kasi tingin ko, medyo may pagkabitin pa ng konti eh. Granular lockdown, o sige, yung it's pointing out, identifying kung sino-sino ang dapat mo i-lockdown, hindi na siya malawakan. O sige, that's one step. Pero kailangan din dyan yung primary care eh. Kasi ibig sabihin, kapag naka-stay at home ang ating mga kababayan, anong gagawin nila next ito? Karamihan sa ating mga kababayan, wala nga silang pambili ng gamot. O kahit sabihin mo, diyan ka lang sa bahay, mild lang ang symptoms mo. Pero wala kang pambili ng gamot para sa mild symptoms mo. May fever ka, may ubo ka. Anong gagawin mo, di ba? Number 2, wala ka rin doktor. So dapat, merong barangay health emergency response teams na laging sinasabi ng DOH, yan ang first line of defense, yung mga BHERTs. Pero sa totoo lang, hindi yan activated everywhere. Diba? So, ideally, yung BHERTs, yung mag-monitor sa'yo.
Let me give you an example, Madam Congresswoman. Meron kaming kilala, nagkasakit yung tatay. COVID na pala, hindi makahinga, kailangan ng oxygen, nangapit bahay para manghiram ng tangke. Sabi ko, ayan na, ganyan na yung mga sitwasyon, mga taong walang gamot, walang oxygen. Gagala yung mga yan, hahanap, gagawa ng paraan, imbis na mag-text na lang dun sa tinatawag mong barangay response team o barangay health response team. Tama po kayo, you are so correct there. Let's go for a quick break if you don't mind, Congresswoman, and we'll come back. We'll come back. Tanungin ko na kayo doon sa mga ibang topics. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Okay, welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and with us is Congresswoman Stella Kimbo, 2nd District of Marikina, and an expert in the fields of economics and management. Professor tuloy, sablay, Congresswoman.
Miss ko na yun.
Yeah, well, both you and me both. You mentioned yung bitin, because the purpose for the granular lockdown was to isolate the sick, open the gates to the well and the vaccinated, and help revive the economy. But pag tiningnan mo yung mga pronouncements on the various levels and protocols, most people will agree if I say the more things change, the more they look the same. Kasi parang ang restaurant, 10% indoor, 30% outdoor, ang simbahan, 30%. Parang sabi, ano kaibahan?
Yes, Cito, actually, for me yun yung first comment ko rin. Kasi pag mag-granular lockdown ka, ibig sabihin nun, wala na yung mga iba-ibang klaseng CQ. Wala na iba't ibang levels ng alert. Di ba ngayon, hindi na siya CQ, kundi mga alert levels. Hindi nga nag-granular lockdown na tayo. So, ibig sabihin nun, on and off na lang, Cito, di ba? Kung naka-granular lockdown ka, on yon. Pero kung hindi, ibig sabihin, safe naman yung area mo, off na yon. Ibig sabihin, meron lang general, kumbaga alert level 1, the lowest level ng alert sa lahat. So, yun ang number 1 eh. And ang pinakamahirap kasi dun sa iba-ibang klaseng alert levels or iba-ibang klaseng CQ, hindi natin naaalala. Kahit ako yung hindi ko ma-memorize yan. So in the end, you end up just ignoring it. Parang that's human behavior, di ba? Pag hindi mo maintindihan, wag na lang.
Well, okay.
Diba?
Last question, Congresswoman. What can Congress do about this? Kasi hiningan kayo ng bayanihan, binigay nyo, sinayang. Ngayon, humihingi ng granular lockdown, etc. Sinuportahan ninyo, pero parang wala namang nagkaiba. What can you and Congress do about this? Because I know you, Congresswoman, have been in the forefront, ang kulit-kulit mo nga, as they would say, in trying to revive the economy and helping people get back on their feet. Pero what can you do?
Well, una sa lahat, modesty aside, no, many of these ideas na slowly ina-adapt came from Congress. It came from many of our hearings. It came from many of our Zoom meetings, including itong granular lockdown or at least aspects of it na sinasabi natin na kailangan bukas kayo sa pinakamaliit na klase ng lockdown tulad ng household lockdown at the extreme, di ba? Many of these ideas came from us, including the shorter quarantine period for travelers from North America, for example. And the way to do it is just to require inbound passengers to be RT-PCR negative. Ang pagkakaalam ko, Sito, isa tayo sa mga countries na walang ganong requirement. Many countries require that when you enter their countries, RT-PCR negative ka. Which makes sense. Ibig sabihin, pag nakasakay ka sa aeroplano, paratag ang loob mo na kahit paano, negative lahat ng kasabay mo sa aeroplano. Wala tayong ganyan. They catch you only when you arrive in the Philippines. And that's the reason for why ang haba-haba ng quarantine period. When in fact, bago ka sumakay ng eroplano papunta sa Pilipinas, dapat RT-PCR negative ka, which is presumably 48 hours before you take your flight. Which means, when you land in the Philippines, on the 3rd day pa lang, pwede ka na magpa-RT-PCR ulit. So those are examples ng ideas na nagaling rin naman sa amin, di ba? So,
okay.
The second idea, therefore, is sana maging kasama din kami dito sa conversation, di ba? Because at least na pagsasama-sama natin lahat ng ahensya na relevant, lahat ng resource persons na tingin natin mga experts, di ba? Pwede natin ipagsama-sama. And at the same time, naka-Facebook live kami. So nakikita talaga ng ating taong bayan kung paano nag-churn out ng decisions. So that's another proposal. Again, going back to the resolution. Ang kasama sa resolution, huling point na lang, is the creation of a joint legislative and executive council. Ibig sabihin, baka itong IATF, baka pwedeng may kasama ring members ng Congress. So yun po yung mga concrete na pwedeng gawin.
Okay, we will follow up on that, Congresswoman. Thank you for your time this morning and thank you for your hard work in Congress. At sana po hindi na kayo laging hindi kasali. Sana sali na kayo sa tumbang preso na ginagawa ng IATF. Thank you very much, Congresswoman.
Salamat po.
Okay, yan po si Congresswoman Stella Kimbo. Nadinig nyo naman po, binigay na lahat. Ang problema, matapos ibigay, hindi naman ginagamit. Sinabi na lahat, hindi naman ginagawa. Naku, maiinit ang ulo tuloy ng next professor natin. Let's go back to class. Our next guest is a professor of political science at the University of the Philippines, Executive Director of the Center for Political and Democratic Reform, Incorporated, also consultant to different government and academic institutions, ang ating favorite professor in politics, Clarita Carlos. Professor Carlos, good morning, ma'am.
Hi, good morning, Chito. Actually, sorry ha, nalimutan ko ito sa dami ng gano'n.
That's why
may tumawag sa akin.
That's why I love you. You are so transparent and so casual. Pero taking advantage, Professor, kasi alam mo, I was desperately looking for an informed source or a competent resource person who can somehow explain to us what this United Nations International Law Center or a Law Commission is all about. Yung bang kung saan na-nominate si Secretary Harry Roque to be country representative. Ako ayoko nang puntahan yung masyadong yung debate about Roque. Pero I think before we even debate about Secretary Roque, we should first get to know ano ba itong pinagkakaguluhang International Law Commission na ere?
Yeah, apologies, Chito, but I really don't know what this ILC is all about. And I know more of the ICC. Pero yung ILC, as part of the UN system, I'm sorry, but I still have to research what it is and to what extent his membership there is more than just, dekorasyon lang siya doon. Like yung, di ba? Kasi dun sa ICC, ganun eh. Di ba? Wala kang sweldo, wala kang honorarium. And natandaan mo si Miriam Chito, hindi siya natawag to sit in that, no? Ganon din si Raul Pangalangan. He was not called. Parang ano siya eh, parang also almost an honorific title until you are called. And also, if we may recall, yung ICC, because this is more pertinent to us rather than the Harry Roque thing, is that so many countries are not members of that. And therefore, if they are investigating the alleged violation of human rights here, unahin nilang imbestigahan yung hindi member, di ba? Kanya hindi patas noon. So sorry, but I can't give you any more explanation for the ILC. Hindi ko
actually, I feel better because I don't feel so ignorant because if an esteemed professor is also in the dark about this commission.
Yeah, but I wanted to do that kasi naawa ako kay Harry. For God's sake, imagine naglabas ang ating community ng message shooting down his nomination. Why are we doing that?
Well, ayun na nga. Hindi ko nga, kasi ako naman, I don't want to take sides. I mean, Harry Roque doesn't like me. I know that for a fact. But, that's life. You can't please everybody. But, I said, let's find out first what the ILC is about and why is it such a big brouhaha. But every time I would call someone to talk about it, medyo pahirapan. But anyway, moving forward,
siguro, Chito, this is not to excuse my laziness, but the fact that very few people, I'm sure you have called lawyers, no? And I'm not a lawyer, hindi rin nila alam yan. There must be an obscure, hole in the wall, parang University of the Seven Seas, nandyan lang siya, and it's not even, wala nga sa natin eh. Even in our remote territory, hindi siya nababanggit.
Okay, let's talk about something. Talk about something that's more palatable to Filipinos. Pwede po ba natin pag-usapan itong mga, kasi nasa front page today, yung mga presidential, yung mga announcements of presidentiables. So far, Senator Tito Soto and Ping Lacson have announced their candidacy. Senator Pacquiao has announced his candidacy. And then there is this guessing game between Sara and Bongbong. And then Isko Moreno, I wrote in my column today, sabi nung source ko, tatakbo with Grace po. What do you make of all of, I can already read your face. I seem to be souring your morning. Para ako masising ko sa klase mo eh.
Well, let's put it this way. Anyone who's qualified to run will run. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I being an elderly Masito, I'm 75. I like the fact that there are young faces there. They're not so young, and those with calcified brains who had been there for many centuries but have not done anything. Atras na kayo, no? Papakit lang kayo dyan. I like young people, Sito. I think we mentioned already in our previous interviews, they are less likely to be bigots. They're more likely to be open-minded and therefore open to constitutional reforms and other new things. And I like that. After all, we're following the plurality principle. Whoever gets the highest number wins. So we'll see. We just hope that Sara Duterte will finally be convinced to run, and the father's candidacy for vice president will be questioned in the Supreme Court because it violates the spirit of the laws. And Isko Moreno, Sara Duterte,
I'm not sure I got your point regarding vice president candidacy should be questioned. Are you referring to anything in particular or someone in particular?
Well, remember, Duterte already accepted the one faction of the PDP Laban.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, Sito, you have violated the spirit of the laws. Assuming for the sake of discussion that he wins, and if the president dies or incapacitated, he will again be president. You would have violated the one-term, 6-year term of the president, isn't it? Why are we not talking about the spirit of the laws? Why are we just saying, okay, sinabi nun eh. Kaya nga, more likely, my first forecast is that it will be shut down in the Supreme Court. Dadali niya sa Supreme Court when the filing of the candidacy happens and the campaign period, etc. But if you will notice ito, the filing is October. The campaign is in February. Everybody's violating the electoral laws, again, in its spirit. And these COMELEC people will say, paano naman, di pa nangakapile yung mga ayan, di wala pang violation. Hello, and we're all stupid people. Diba? Wow. Nakita mo ba yung naglipa na ng mga political ads dyan? Nagsasayang lang ako yung salapi nyo dyan. Actually. Diba? Wow.
Lahat nga, pati ang Diyos, sinama na sa kampanya eh.
Yeah, Tito, you know what is so concerning about this? A failed state does not collapse immediately. A failed state becomes so incrementally, step by step. You start chipping off the institutions. You start bending and slanting the laws, and by, you're Somalia. You're a failed state. You cannot lean anymore on institutional frameworks. Wala na struktura mo eh. Binuwag mo eh, isa-isa. Di ba? One hollow block at a time. That is the more concerning part.
Okay, this thing about failed states, etc., and bending the law, let me refocus it to something that you clearly are very familiar with. You said the ICC, the International Court. Nahihilo na ako kung alin yung mga ICC, ILC. But anyway, the International Criminal Court, the government simply said, we can't recognize it. It has not been published. Our membership in it before was never published in the Gazette. So we are not covered by the court. I mean, is that a valid argument? And is it true that, as the Malacanang pointed out, we will just wait this out and it will die a natural death because they can't touch the president anyway?
Assuming for the sake of discussion that such technicalities will prevent its investigation, from day one, Tito, I've been interviewed about this 10,000 times. I said, if these people want to investigate, let them come. Let them be joined by scholars, by people who are relevant to this investigation. Let us present all the data available from the key informants. And why not? Let this be investigated so that the questions will be a period, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, bakit hindi? So, ang gagawin mo ngayon kasi, haharangin mo yan sa technicality. And I'm sure, lawyers who really know what they're doing can in fact point out to kulang ito ng semicolon, therefore it cannot proceed. I know this, di ba? They can just pay attention to the nitty-gritty and basag yung kaso mo. But yes, at the root of it all, if there's human rights violation, let them be investigated. Because the point of all this is that they should not be repeated. No one can, with impunity, kill people. I don't know if you remember Kian, that boy who was killed and who was pleading. He had an exam the following day. Alam mo ba, hindi ako nakapunta sa ating UP Alumni Awards. Isa ako doon sa mga awardees doon baga. Dahil iyak ako ng iyak. I don't even know this boy. I mean, I was just so broken-hearted that, my God, itong bata nagpi-plead na may exam siya and was killed. I mean, this is how it really hit me. And yes, not only as a social scientist, but as a human being, let this be investigated. As a matter of fact, let us not wait for the ICC to do this. Bakit hindi ba natin pwedeng gawin yan? Diba?
Okay, I don't want to get you off that emotional tangent, Professor. Matanong ko lang, historically speaking, has there been incidents where the ICC passed judgment or found someone guilty, and in spite of all the resistance, they actually penalized that person or the country from which that person was coming from?
Yes. Remember the Bosnia-Herzegovina massacres?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were able to convict. And Milosevic, I think, died in prison. And then right now, they are proceeding with the other antagonists there. The others, they have not been convicted. And there was one African political leader whose name escapes me now. He has been convicted. And yes, his movements had been practically paralyzed because anytime he gets out of his territory, he can in fact be arrested on the basis of the conviction that this ICC had laid out. But I keep on emphasizing that many of the countries who have violated human rights, let us name them already, the UK, the US, ang dami na ninyong mga thousand ang pinatay ninyo sa mga in-invade nyo na countries. Bakit hindi kayo kasama dyan sa sinusuplong? This is my question. No? Bakit yung mga members lang sito do you see the injustice of it all? Yung mga members lang, yan ang papakialaman mo. Yung mga hindi members, wala lang, magpatay na lang sila ng tao. Hindi ba recently, itong yung in the wake of the withdrawal of the US, hindi ba meron silang sinabi nila minaman-man na nila ng 8 oras? What did they do? They killed 10 children. And if you will notice, hinarang na naman nila. Iniskin na naman nila yung news. No, tinitingnan ko yung Western media, walang nagsasabing children yung mga napatay. Yung sa 10, doon sa kotse na yun. Kasi may mga bata nasa paligid ng kotse. 10 yung namatay ng mga bata. Diba? So,
in terms of human rights, in terms of preventing the repetition of these heinous crimes, these extrajudicial killings, we must cooperate with the ICC. But at the same time, it does not mean that it's only in our backyards. There is also the problem that happens in UK, in the US, etc., which you correctly pointed out. Now, what should be the right approach to this? Kasi parang ang Malacanang, right now, ang mga sinasabi sa Malacanang is that kung wala kayong kasalanan, wala kayong tinatago, huwag kayong magtago. What message would you give to the president or to his advisors regarding how to engage the ICC?
The message is really not to the president, but to the relevant agencies. You have everything within your mandates to investigate. Let us not wait for an external entity like the ICC to investigate. I'm sure there is enough outrage about this impunity, that this cannot continue, that those who were killed are poor people, and na-notice mo ba sito, meron bang napatay dyan ng mga drug user or pusher na mayaman, na mataba? Hindi ba lahat mapapayat, na malnourished, etc.? I mean, you don't need to do a deep content analysis. Just a binocular inspection, ang mga napapatay, mga mahirap, mapapayat, at those na walang mga relatives na pwedeng makareklamo at makabayad ng lawyers. This is the injustice of it all. Even our local entities can already investigate. Wag na maghintay ng wag nang maghintay na may external entity that will be doing the investigation. In fact, kanya nagkiking external entity, hindi enough, hindi adequate yung investigation here in the local environment.
Okay, well, I think that is, you have put it in the proper context, Professor, and hayaan mo, next time I report for your class, I will do my homework better and research on this.
Alam mo, while we were doing this, nag-multitask ako. Nag-search ako kay Dr. Google kung ano yung ILC. Ang ILC is a body of experts of 34 experts in international law, which Harry Roque is. Kasi Harry Roque is my student, by the way. Very, very critical mind, well published. And what do? They codify international law. It's very important. Why? Because international law sometimes is found in many, many sources. Sometimes it's even tradition. It's not even written down. So the codification is very important so that you have the enforcement capability.
They put it in black and white.
Yes, it's very, very important, and therefore, it's a very important body. So, my quick and dirty research told me that.
Okay. Actually, I did a little more, but I wanted to authenticate it with your authority. In any case, Professor, thank you very much for your time this morning. I hope it becomes more pleasant as the day progresses. And huwag masyadong inom ng kape at baka uminit pa ulo mo sa akin. Thank you very much, ma'am.
1 cup lang ito. Good morning, Sito.
Okay, that's Professor Clarita Carlos, and I guess the best takeaway we can get from her is, at the end of the day, many of these so-called EJKs, etc., is being directed or referred to President Duterte as the author. Pero marami po sa mga nangyayari na yan ay gawa or initiative of people in the much, much, much lower ranks. So if the president actually opens the doors and have all of this investigated, baka magkalabasan dyan na, teka, hindi pala yung presidente may pakanan nito, meron palang mga tao ditong gustong ma-promote agad. Anyway, that's today's agenda. May the Lord bless you, keep you, and provide for you. Take care. Please remain prayerful. I'm Cito Beltran. Please keep it here on One News.